Technically drum step, but close enough.
What's up guys, and welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. Today I'm showing you the making of some pretty absurd dubstep on the Roland MC-101. This video is going to be broken into two parts, part one being on the MC-101 and part two being in Serum, where I designed the bass sounds. I'm going to walk you through how I made those. So first of all, let's play through the entire jam and I will go from there. So that's the jam. It got a little messy there near the end, but hopefully you get the idea. So let's dive into how I put this together, starting off with the drums. So I got a kick. This is, I believe, from the Disciple free pack that they put out a little while ago. Same with the snare. Got a hi-hat, panned a bit to the left, open hi-hat, panned a bit to the right, and that's basically it for the drums. And then the other thing to note is that I've got these patterns chained together. So I have this one set. If I choose this and go to next clip, it's set to clip 2 and it is set to repeat 128 steps before it does so. Same over here. This is set to repeat 128 steps and then it will go back to clip 1. Moving on to the part that is the most important, arguably, the bass. So there's a lot going on here. So let me walk you through each of these sounds individually to start it off. There's that one. And most of these are different sounds, different wave files that I've loaded in via the SD card. And if I go to sample edit, you'll see that some of these start not right at the beginning. So some of these start in different places because I wanted to emphasize certain kind of changes over time that these basses are going through. So for instance, this one, that's the very tail end of the sample. And I really wanted to get that kind of screechy, phasey sound at the very end. So here's the whole pattern played out. And because the pitch of these is raised a little bit, it also shortens them a bit, hence my use of the scatter feature at the very end of the pattern to reverse it and extend it. Wait for it. And that works out pretty nicely, and that's the reason I chained the drums together so I could just keep scatter open at all times. So the other scatter functions I'm using here, for one thing, I've got this routed to only affect this track, the bass track, which is super useful. The other ones I'm making heavy use of are the reverse as kind of like a fill, which I think sounds incredible. And then this kind of sample and hold. And then also the little pitch downshifter. And it can pretty quickly devolve into chaos. And then for the second part, filter down. And I don't remember what patch this is. Mild saw lead. I actually used this in my first ever jam. It was like a synth pop type jam, so that's kind of nice. And then also, note, there's one other section I didn't actually incorporate into the jam. And that goes from there. So this right here is another one of the Serum patches. You can hear its tail there, but I never let it get to that point. I'm mostly using it for that kind of metallic attack. And you can hear that glide. And in order to do that, because this is a sample, not a patch, you can hit Shift and Sound, go into Setting, and that's one of the options. I've got Portamento turned on, and then I've got the time turned up to 15. Which for this particular melody was just about perfect, just dialed that into taste. So that's it for the 101. Fairly simple actually, mostly just taking existing sounds, breaking them up into pieces, and then figuring out a pattern that works, and then bringing all of that way over the top using scatter. So let's jump into Serum to see how I actually designed these sounds. All right, I am now in Reaper. I've got Serum pulled up, and here's the patch with basically nothing modulated at all. This is what it sounds like before any effects or modulation. Not all that exciting, but you can probably hear the beginnings of what this was about to become. So the source for this wavetable is a Barely Alive growl. So I brought a wave file of their growl, or it's more of a wub really, in, chopped off the bits of silence, normalized everything, crossfaded everything, and ended up with this wavetable. Right now, this is just stuck on one part of the wavetable. So first of all, I add a sub. That is a triangle wave an octave down. And let's start messing with the wavetable. So the first thing I did is take this LFO and scrub it around the wavetable position. So I'm cheating a little bit, and that's one of the things I love about Serum, honestly, is that it does let you cheat like this. Take an existing growl and then completely restructure it into something else that is equally growly, but sounds quite different. But we're not even close to being done. So this is just kind of the sweet spot that I managed to find. The next thing I did was I modulated the detune. You start to get some phasing. A lot of the kind of AU5, like really trippy growls, a lot of that comes from intentionally causing phase cancellation and weirdness. And so I'm starting that by modulating this detune with unison cranked. Off to a good start. Next up is remap. So let me turn that on. That's what this looks like. This is basically bending the waveform, and you'll be able to see it. You see how it even falls apart and gets really low resolution over here. That's something that I just tinkered with until I got to sound cool. And I believe that's everything that this LFO is controlling, unless, oh yeah, this resonance right here. Here's no filter, by the way. So already just by itself, this filter is changing the tone. So here's without, here's with. You can see this moves by a little bit. I don't think this ended up doing a whole lot, to be completely honest, but it is shaping the sound by cutting and boosting some very specific frequencies, and you're gonna see that pop up again right here. So you gotta be careful when working with these phaser and flanger and comb filters, because they can kind of change the pitch of your sound, and also they can get incredibly messy. In this case, I'm just leaning into that messiness. So this starts off pretty much static and then exponentially ramps up at the end. Oh, and some of this stuff is also being modulated, so let's go into that next. So you can hear the basics of the sounds are all here. So let's get a hyper in here. Adding some width. Distortion. Chorus. Once again, leaning into the phase cancellation, this just goes up at the very end. And finally, the reverb also goes up in size. And immediately dips back down. And then this flanger, if I recall correctly, I ended up turning it off, but this is what that sounds like. Didn't end up doing all that much. So that's the basis of the sound. And from here, anything that I do to tweak it will result in a pretty different sound. For instance, I could bring this down, bring it up, because that's controlling the shape of the remap, the wavetable position, the changing the detune, the resonance. That's a lot all changing at once, and I can take this even further if I want to. And the reason I brought this into the MC-101 is not only that I wanted to make beats on the go, but that I wanted to be able to take those cool little sweet spot moments like right here, chop them up in a really intuitive way, and then just start throwing stuff around and see what cool pattern I could come up with. I can just keep messing with this, which is exactly what I did. This patch right here, a lot of this stuff is the exact same, with the key difference of the level being modulated by this LFO right here. I'm also modulating the pan related to the filter, which is adding more chaos into the mix. Also modulating the level of the sub, and I don't think there's anything in here that's being modulated that's any extra. These effects aren't on, just for information. And also note that this reverb is on plate and turned down as low as it goes. That gives it this really metallic ringiness that I really like. So that's really a fairly simple addition, and then also I've run this through a defacer. Bring out a little bit of extra grit, and then from there I was able to just keep messing with the sound. This one's especially ridiculous, and I'm actually going to turn this down preemptively. In this case, I added yet another LFO that is going incredibly fast, so there's almost some like FM type processing going on with this filter. You hear this level getting modulated like crazy as well. I don't think I used this one. I think I used a modified version of this. There's a really vocally one that I didn't end up saving that I ended up making, but that's the basics of how I made the growls. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see a video on Roland MC-101 tips, tricks, and hacks, you can click or tap up over here. And if you'd like to see more bass music on groove boxes, you can click or tap down over here. I'll be back with a new video in a little bit, so in the meantime, thank you so much for watching.